This is the Mop Up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you for joining me. As of Monday, the midterms are 85 days away. And what we are witnessing is the emergence of a powerful left wing taking on the Washington establishment, an establishment desperately clinging to its weakening grip over the Democratic Party. We are seeing leftists, candidates primarily of color, most of them women, who are animating their base by running on income inequality and against America's unconditional support for Israel. They are defeating Democratic incumbents in this year's primaries, possibly making 2026 the worst primary season for Democratic incumbents in modern American history. On average, a total of 6 House members lose their primaries each election cycle. That's a total of 6 on average. When you combine Republicans and Democrats, on average, each election cycle, 6 incumbents are primaried out of office. But so far this year, 6 Democratic incumbents have been primaried out of office, and the primary season isn't even over yet. In 2024, only 2 Democratic incumbents were primaried out of office. In the closest we've come to what's going on in 2026 was back in 2020 when Bernie launched his insurgency and almost got the Democratic nomination. He brought along with him a handful of progressives into Congress, but nothing compared to what's going on right now in terms of Democratic incumbents getting primaried out of office and the number of leftists beating them. This is unbelievable. So far, 4 out of the 6 incumbents primaried out of office were defeated by candidates who ran to the left of them. Dan Goldman of New York, Adriana Espaillat of New York, he's been on the show, Deanna DeGette of Colorado, and Sri Thanedar of Michigan, all primaried out of office by candidates who ran to the left of them. Then you had Al Green and Julie Johnson, 2 Congress people, both from Texas. They were defeated by candidates who, ran to the right of them, but not really. Incumbent Al Green was defeated by the incumbent Christian Menifee. Those were 2 incumbents down in Texas forced to run against each other due to gerrymandering in Texas. Congressman Menifee is probably a little to the right of Al Green, but not much. He wasn't a leftist insurgent, is what I'm saying. Let me know in the comments if you live in Texas. From what I've read, Menifee is a little more to the right than Al Green, but he's still left of center. And then Julie Johnson lost the Democratic Party's, she's the incumbent down in Texas. She lost her seat to the Democratic Party Senate candidate back in 2024, former Congressman Colin Allred, who one could argue is also slightly to the right of Julie Johnson. But Dan Goldman in New York, Adriana Espaillat of New York, Diana DeGette of Colorado, and Sri Thanedar of Michigan all lost to candidates challenging them from the left. And except for Brad Lander, who defeated Dan Goldman here in New York, the challengers from the left were all members of the Democratic Socialists of America. Brad Lander, not a Democratic Socialist of America, but certainly far to the left of Dan Goldman, especially when it comes to Israel. So you can be a a democratic socialist and not be a member of the DSA. You can also be everything the democratic socialists are for and yet not identify as a democratic socialist. There is very little sunlight between Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the DSA, but you couldn't call him a democratic socialist. You couldn't call Lyndon Johnson a democratic socialist. On today's show, I'm going to be discussing the superficiality of labels and how they reduce policy down to one word, making it easy to prevent the change our country is so desperately in need of. I see no need to label myself anything other than a Democrat. I fight within the Democratic Party. We're not a parliamentary system. It's a binary choice. I wish it weren't, but this is the game. So I'm a Democrat, and I'm trying to move this party to the left. That's why I don't introduce socialism into the conversation. It's distracting from policy debates. It's kind of like religion. What you really believe, like socialism, are you a capitalist? It has nothing to do with government. Socialism is a religion. I don't want to talk socialism versus capitalism because in the real world, neither exists. In the real world, all we have are whether or not to raise the minimum wage, or one big beautiful bill that got passed last year, or Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, or the 2027 budget, which they're still ironing out. That's the real world. I don't care about, are you a socialist, a syndicalist? I care about what's going on in government, and there are massive bills costing trillions and affecting the lives of millions. Whether somebody is for or against capitalism is of no issue to me. These are incredibly complex bills that reflect values, not ideology or religion, values. So I don't care if you're a John Bircher, a capitalist. Where do you stand on the specifics? That's what I care about. Where do you stand on work requirements for Medicaid? Where do you stand on funding wind and solar, food stamps? Where do you stand on free health care, free tuition at all public universities? Where do you stand on abolishing ICE? How do we maintain borders and at the same time protect everyone already living here? Calling yourself a socialist, a capitalist, a Christian nationalist, a Zionist, MAGA, or a libertarian, these are vague abstractions. And accusing me of falling into one of those categories, or my accusing you of falling into one of those categories, does nothing to resolve the problems we both care about or should care about. When you start arguing socialism and religion, it signals to me you really don't care about the homeless. I want to tackle income inequality. Do you? I want to tax billionaires. I want to spread the wealth. I want to make billionaires extinct. Partly because it will pay for a lot of programs, but money is power, and billionaires have too much of it. They've been taking our money away from us. It's time to take away their money. I want to increase the minimum wage to $20 an hour. I want to abolish ICE. I've done so many shows proving to you why ICE is nothing more than a palace guard for an authoritarian president. tax every financial transaction on Wall Street, to cut down on trading just for trading's sake. Rein in private equity. Make it illegal, as it once was, for someone like Mitt Romney and Bain Capital to buy a perfectly good company by relying on debt and then destroying that perfectly good company by putting all the debt that was borrowed to purchase that company, take that debt, and they transfer it onto that company's balance sheets and destroy it while collecting enormous fees. That should be illegal. It used to be illegal. It's not a debate about capitalism. That's not capitalism. I want the nearly $500 billion owed to the Internal Revenue Service that goes uncollected because we lack the resources. I want that money. I want $500 billion each year goes uncollected because Republicans keep defunding the IRS. So that's just some of the things I want, and I'll debate you on that, but I'm not going to debate you on my religious beliefs or whether or not I'm a socialist or a capitalist, or it's irrelevant. It doesn't belong in the public square. And I'm not going to debate you on abolishing the prisons or abolishing ICE or abolishing the police. This is a stupid debate. We have to abolish ICE. I'm not going to debate you on that. ICE and for-profit ICE detention centers are not the police, and they are not prisons. And the DSA official platform notwithstanding, nobody who is serious is recommending we abolish police or prisons in our country. Apparently, that's one of the stated goals of the DSA, if you read their platform. And it's one of the reasons I'm not a member. But it's a nice thought. It's a nice thought to abolish the police and our prisons. It's nice to think that eventually America won't need policing or prisons. And we need people like members of the DSA explaining why there are better alternatives to the police and prisons. In some instances, I believe we need police. I believe we need prisons. But if someone is having a bad mental health day, it's better to send in a social worker than a police officer with a gun, because there's always a distinct possibility that police officer with a gun is also having a bad mental health day, especially when confronting a black male. We get better outcomes with social workers responding to Americans having a bad mental health day than police officers showing up on the scene, seeing a black man with a gun and shooting. I don't want to abolish the police. I think we spend too much on police and not enough on social workers. Our prisons are a disgrace. They're not about preventing crime or rehabilitation. Very few of the people behind bars in this country are violent criminals, and practically none of them ever had a trial, even though the Bill of Rights guarantees them one. Our prisons, well, that's where we warehouse poor people, especially of color, and use them as free sources of labor. Now, just because I want to reimagine the police and prisons, that doesn't mean I want to abolish the police and prisons. In fact, I'm for law and order. I think 2 million people in this country should be behind bars. And if you want to know who they are, they're the ones Donald Trump keeps pardoning. Florida Senator Rick Scott should be in prison for stealing close to $1 billion from Medicare and Medicaid. Yeah, for life. He should be behind bars. I'm all for locking people up, just not most of the ones we have behind bars right now. So I like the Democratic Socialists. My only disagreement with them is over practicality. That might be a function of getting older and being irrelevant. So I like the Democratic Socialists. I like younger people because I'm sclerotic in my thinking. I happen to believe dreams are not policy, and putting dreams into your official platform, while noble and endearing, sets you up for ridicule. That being said, you're going to be ridiculed anyway because you're Democratic Socialists. Democrats are going to be called communists. No matter what we do, no matter who we run, Republicans are going to accuse us of being communists, so you might as well have some socialists in the party. So I wasn't impressed with some of the interviews that DSA leaders have given, and that's why, for example, David Remnick of The New Yorker interviewed somebody from the DSA. That's part of what the establishment does. They find innocent lefties who don't know how to go into the weeds quite yet on policy and expose them for ridicule, when in fact they're right. They just don't know the actual legislation, but they know what's right and they know what's wrong. I think a party like the Democratic Socialists should only state what bills it plans on introducing to address the problems they want to fix. But look, I'm a Democrat. The DSA doesn't speak for me. It doesn't speak for all Democratic Socialists. And, Bernie is a Democratic Socialist, but he's never been a member of the DSA. The DSA almost doesn't exist. It's the enemy the right needs to build up. Antifa doesn't exist at all. The DSA comes close. It has about 120,000 members, and it's at the height of its popularity. There are only two. Now, let me correct this. It does exist. It's punching way above its weight class right now, way above, in this moment in history. So right now, this Congress only has two members who are officially DSA. They are AOC and Rashida Tlaib. And I always tell you, they're the only ones you should be donating money to. Not because they're DSA, but because they're AOC and Rashida Tlaib. They are Democrats attempting to move the party to the left where it belongs. And it now looks, so I want to correct myself. I said the DSA doesn't exist. It has 120,000 members, but it now looks like 5 more DSA members will be joining the House of Representatives on January 3rd, 2027. So, and the primaries aren't over. I'm counting, and leave a comment, maybe I'm wrong, I'm counting 7 official members of the DSA about to start serving in the House of Representatives come January 3rd, 2027, assuming Donald Trump doesn't invoke the Insurrection Act. We have no members of the DSA in the Senate, including Bernie Sanders. He is not a member of the DSA. Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, who won in Michigan last Tuesday, is not DSA. In fact, he's not even a socialist. You can run on Medicare for all, and you don't have to be a socialist. You can be a capitalist. He calls himself a capitalist. You can be a capitalist and still be in favor of Medicare for all, because not everything has to be commodified. And Medicare for all, by the way, would be the biggest government handout to corporations in American history. Well, let's discuss what's taking hold here in the Democratic Party, because it's important to enumerate the victories that Democratic socialists are having. In Colorado 1, a reliably blue district, we have DSA member and Democrat Mela Quiroz, who defeated longtime Democratic incumbent Congresswoman Diana DeGette. In reliably blue Pennsylvania, 3rd Congressional District, in and around Philadelphia, Chris Robb, also a member of the DSA, won the nomination, and it's Philadelphia. He's more than likely winning the general. I mean, it's just a given. He's going to win that. In New York's reliably blue 7th Congressional District, State Assemblywoman Claire Valdez, a member of the DSA, won the Democratic nomination back in June. She's already measuring the curtains. In Harlem, New York's dark blue 13th Congressional District, Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier. I apologize for just mangling that. That's just my inadequacy. And probably if I cared more and was more respectful, I would have learned her name. So I apologize. It is disrespectful. Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier. She defeated longtime Democratic incumbent Adriana Espaillat, and she's going to win the general. Last Tuesday, in Michigan's deep blue 13th Congressional District, we saw Donovan McKinney, who served briefly in Michigan's House of Representatives, defeat incumbent Democratic Congressman Sri Tandar. McKinney is a member of the DSA. He's going to win this. Incumbent Democratic Congressman Sri Tandar, who was defeated, at one time was a member of the DSA until he quit after October 7th, 2023. Congressman Sri Tandar left the DSA because it sponsored a pro-Palestinian rally in New York City right after October 7th, which he called insensitive and anti-Semitic. Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier, who won New York 13 and will go on to become a United States Congresswoman after the general, she attended that rally. She said she showed up because she knew Netanyahu's response to October 7th would be disproportionate. She said it would result in the mass slaughter of innocent Palestinian civilians in Gaza. Boy, was she wrong. They try to use that, her showing up to the rally. You have establishment Democrats reducing this woman down to a candidate who's running entirely against Israel's right to exist. This is how labels and simplistic thinking halt progress. We had important primaries throughout all of last week, especially in Michigan, Missouri, and Tennessee. This is the mop-up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Hang on. I did something over the weekend. Hang on, is that better? Hang on. I was playing with AI and After Effects and... Okay. Please like this episode and all that garbage. Okay. This Tuesday, we have closely watched primaries in Minnesota, Wisconsin, as well as in Connecticut, Alabama, and Vermont. Then, a week from this Tuesday, we have important primaries in Florida. Republican Corey Mills, speaking of Florida, represents Florida 7. He's refused to give up his seat. He's running for re-election despite the House Ethics Committee back in May launching what it described as a serious and complex investigation. Well, we've been over Corey Mills for 2 years. He's an Iraq war veteran turned defense contractor who's been accused of exaggerating his combat record in order to receive a Bronze Star, claiming to have rescued 2 soldiers who reportedly have no recollection of who he even is. Florida Republican Corey Mills has also been accused of violating the law by serving in Congress while at the same time owning a weapons contractor that benefits from government contracts. That's against the law. Then there are the allegations of adultery, charges of stalking, threatening, and physically assaulting several of his girlfriends. I'm surprised the man still finds time to accomplish absolutely nothing in Washington, D.C. You'd think he wouldn't have time to do nothing in Washington, D.C. with all his adventures with women. So his primary is a week from this Tuesday, and he's got 3 challengers, and 2 Florida Republican members of Congress are now endorsing his opponent, local anchorman Ryan Elijah. Right now, Mills still leads in the polls, but a lot of voters in his district say they're undecided. Either way, I doubt his district is ever flipping. But you know the rules of the game. 435 members of the House of Representatives. Democrats only need a net gain of 3 for New York City Democrat Hakeem Jeffries to replace Louisiana Republican Mike Johnson as Speaker. 100 members of Congress, Democrats, need a net gain of just 4 seats for New York Democrat Chuck Schumer to replace South Dakota Republican John Thune as Senate leader. Establishment Democrats are now moving Michigan into the toss-up category, claiming Dr. El-Sayed's victory on Tuesday has made this reliably blue Senate seat vulnerable. Bullshit. You hear from David Axelrod, James Carville, Mark Penn, and all the hacks, the political consultants inside the Democratic Party making millions off the status quo. These are the guys who want to keep money in politics. These are the guys who are saying Dr. El-Sayed can't win in Michigan. They will always say candidates in the Democratic Party on the left who refuse corporate donors, they say they're unelectable. Why do they say that? Well, it's a threat to their business model. That's why. So Dr. El-Sayed, Bernie, AOC, they are wind and solar. James Carville, David Axelrod, and Mark Penn are fossil fuels, emphasis on the word fossils. They are fossils who just need, especially Carville. Carville hasn't been relevant since 1992. So he should just shut his mouth. You hear Carville, David Axelrod, Mark Penn, my sister's worthless Democratic Congressman Josh Gottheimer, only talk about electability. Why? Because they want to focus on labels, not issues, because they're not for anything. They think all they have to do is call themselves Democrats, and that means they're for something. No, they're for themselves. Josh Gottheimer, David Axelrod, James Carville, they're for themselves. They don't believe in anything other than themselves. They don't come to Washington to better the lives of Americans. They come to better their own lives. These are the Democrats: Josh Gottheimer, Chuck Schumer and his children, Nancy Pelosi and her husband. These are the Democrats whose entire political career makes the case. They make the case for voting Republican. They're indefensible. Their lives as Democrats, their careers, are indefensible. Well, speaking of indefensible, we have Max Miller, Congressman Max Miller, and he has until Monday to replace himself, to drop out. He's defying the leadership. He's not abandoning his bid, and he will attempt, he says, to hold on to Ohio 7 amid allegations of child, spousal, and drug abuse. Several key Republicans, including Senator John Husted, running for re-election in that state, calling on Max Miller to step aside. Instead, Max Miller just put $1 million of his own money into that race. John Husted, this is J.D. Vance's Senate seat. So John Husted was appointed to that seat, and now they're having a race to finish out the last 2 years. He's in a tight re-election campaign against former Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown, who has a slight lead in the polls. The heavily white and affluent Ohio 7, which Max Miller represents, it's where this Senate race could be decided. And control of the House may also be partly decided in Ohio 7. Max Miller is dragging the Republican Party down. Corey Mills, who I just talked about down in Florida, has a lot of the same problems when it comes to ethics investigations, perhaps worse than Max Miller. I'm going to say worse than Max Miller. But Corey Mills is not going to suppress Republican turnout in Florida the way Max Miller will in Ohio. Republican polling firm, it's called Coefficient now out with disturbing numbers for Ohio Republicans, showing Max Miller now losing to his Democratic opponent Brian Poindexter by 14 points. The same polling unit showed Poindexter only up by 5 points in late July. So within 2 weeks, he's jumped by 9. As news gets worse for Max Miller, so do his numbers. As I keep telling you, we don't know where Max Miller's bottom is. But he's going to have to drop out with his name on or off the ballot. If he doesn't drop out by tomorrow, I think Monday at 4 p.m., I think his name, I think that's the deadline, his name stays on the ballot. If Republicans don't name a replacement by Monday night, Miller is locked on the ballot, and that's when all the Oppo research starts coming out. If Max Miller doesn't drop out Monday night, and I think he eventually does drop out. I just don't know if it's going to be Monday night. I think he's going to drop out, maybe with his name stuck on the ballot. If he doesn't drop out, then early September, right after Labor Day, that will be the worst week of his life. There's stuff that is going to start coming out that they're holding on to, and it's going to get a lot worse for Max Miller. And Republican air can't leak out of Ohio 7. Again, I think it's safe to say Corey Mills in Florida, he's been accused of far worse. But his district isn't pivotal. Max Miller's is, and because of that, the knives are out for Max Miller. Trump won Miller's district by 11 percentage points. So if voters in Ohio 7 stay home, that makes it virtually impossible for Republican Senator John Husted at this point to get reelected. And it's also going to hurt billionaire Republican Vivek Ramaswamy in his race for governor, where the polls showing him behind Democrat Amy Acton. She's ahead, not by much. And again, all of this can change. But if the election were held right now, John Husted would lose, and so would Max Miller. Things change. Again, as we saw Tuesday in Michigan, the polls are sometimes problematic. That being said, last Tuesday, the polls got a lot of things spot on. They missed how tight it was going to be between Dr. Syed and Haley Stevens, but they got a lot of things. They got most of it right, including Dr. L. Syed winning. They just didn't know it would be that tight. Okay, Ohio 7 and Max Miller. By the time you hear this, he may have already dropped out. Ohio Republicans have until 4 p.m. Monday to officially replace him. Now, conventional wisdom is they don't have the time. The deadline has effectively passed because they don't have the time to find his replacement Monday night. But Miller has become so radioactive, I think they can make the time. I think they're desperately working behind the scene to get him off the ballot by Monday night. I don't think he's going to leave. I think his name will be on the ballot, but I don't think he lasts until Election Day. 3 seats. That's all it takes to flip the House. Before Max Miller's problems got so bad, Republicans had anywhere between 20 and 30 House seats they had to defend. Well, Ohio 7 couldn't be one of them. That's not what they planned on. Granted, Republicans right now have way more money to spend this cycle than the Democrats. And on top of that, Max Miller just put $1 million of his own money into the race. But this is a big ticket seat. $1 million won't be enough. It's the Cleveland ad market, making it the 19th most expensive in the country. So if money has to be spent on Miller, that takes money away from the nearly 30 other House seats that Republicans have to defend. Between now and November, this is about allocating resources, money, and big-name Republicans willing to hit the campaign trail on behalf of candidates desperately holding on to their seats. You know Obama's showing up to Ohio 7. You know that. You know the Clintons are going to show up. So who is going to help Max Miller? He only has money. That's all they can do. Not a single big-name Republican would dare campaign for him. They're all demanding he step aside. On Sunday, Jim Banks of Indiana joined Senator John Husted of Ohio, Tim Sheehy of Montana, and Miller's old father-in-law, Senator Bernie Moreno, urging Max Miller drop out. Nobody's going to campaign with Max Miller. Probably Trump, which may not help at this point if you've seen Trump's numbers. So in order for Max Miller to keep this seat, all he's got is money. All he's got to hope for is that the Republicans chip in. Will they? Which House Republicans will be willing to divert their resources to help Max Miller keep this district? So we're going to follow Ohio 7 for many reasons. It's 87% white, one of the wealthiest districts in the state of Ohio. 40% of the households there earn six figures. This is Republican country. You have to win Ohio 7 to win statewide. If November is a wave election, and I don't know if it's going to be, but they say it might be, if it's a wave election, it will be because Democrats showed up, Republicans stayed home. And we see polling now that there's a 10% enthusiasm gap between the Democrats and the Republicans, meaning more Democrats plan to vote than Republicans. And we haven't seen this wide a chasm since 2018, those midterms where, Trump lost 54 seats in the House of Representatives, but he kept the Senate. I think he lost about 54 seats, maybe 44 seats. I don't know. I can't remember. So it's about showing up, and Max Miller is a reason for Republicans to stay home. If it's a wave election, Democrats automatically flip Senate seats in Maine and North Carolina. So they need two more seats for control of the Senate. And the trend lines right now, of course, this could always change, and it does, but trend lines are suggesting Max Miller could deliver not just his congressional seat, but John Husted's Senate seat to the Democrats by suppressing just enough wealthy white suburban voters. Well, then that's 3 Senate seats. And he loses. It's a net gain of 1 there, assuming all goes well. If voters in Ohio 7 stay home, that gives Democrat Sherrod Brown the advantage in what is shaping up to be an incredibly tight race to unseat Republican Senator John Husted. Ohio 7th was not supposed to be in play. It is. That brings me to North Carolina's 11th congressional district, also not supposed to be in play. Trump won that district by 10 points in 2024. Well, it's not in play. They want you to think it is to get you all excited. North Carolina's 11th congressional district is not in play, but incumbent Republican Chuck Edwards is out after the House Ethics Committee, for the first time in nearly 16 years, recommended that a member of Congress get censured after they concluded Edwards sexually harassed several female staffers and created a hostile work environment. The stories are obscene and pathetic for the women, the victims, and he's pathetic. But he's a Republican. North Carolina Republicans have until the 20th of this month to replace Edwards. They are meeting Monday night. They're expected to nominate State Senator Tim Moffitt, who he appears to be your run-of-the-mill conservative Republican. There's no dirt, at least none that we know about. And his Democratic opponent is Jamie Ajor, who comes from a family of North Carolina politicians. He's never held elective office. Polling is slim to none. You're going to be hearing about this. I don't think this seat is flipping. The big race in North Carolina is the Senate, where if this is a wave election, former Democratic Governor Roy Cooper is expected to defeat the former chairman of the Republican Party, Michael Whatley. Again, despite what people are going to try to convince you to get you all excited, North Carolina 11, short of a tsunami, is not flipping blue. This is the open Senate seat, talking about Roy Cooper running for Senate and probably ending up as the next senator from North Carolina. This is an open Senate seat. Republican Thom Tillis said he was abandoning last year after he voted to confirm Pete Hegseth, after he folded like an umbrella and just said he's done. Thom Tillis continues to be a disgrace. He was the big holdout on Hegseth, but in the end, he voted for Hegseth. He met with Hegseth's former sister-in-law, who said he wouldn't vote for Hegseth unless she got to testify before the Senate Armed Services Committee about Hegseth abusing physically and emotionally his second wife. Tillis said, doesn't get my vote unless she's allowed to testify. They didn't allow her to testify. He voted for Hegseth anyway. And he was the big holdout on Todd Blanche becoming permanent Attorney General. On Saturday, the Senate voted 50-49 to confirm Todd Blanche. Tillis, the maverick, voted in favor of Todd Blanche. That doesn't stop Tillis from literally rewriting history. In fact, he has a new book coming out in October entitled How to Lose Friends and Antagonize Presidents. So this is his parting shot as he leaves the Senate. He's accusing Republicans of being spineless yes men. In the book, he calls on Republicans to stand their ground against Donald Trump and show some courage. Would you like to guess how many times the courageous vertebrae, Thom Tillis, stood his ground and voted against one of Donald Trump's cabinet picks? None. Not once did Thom Tillis stand his ground and vote against Donald Trump's cabinet pick. Not once did Thom Tillis vote against Donald Trump. He voted yes in 2025 on all 22 of Donald Trump's cabinet picks. Republican Senators Mitch McConnell, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Ted Budd, as I mentioned, Rand Paul, all voted at least once against a Trump cabinet nominee, but not Thom Tillis and his spine, not once. Well, if you stand for nothing, like Thom Tillis, you are performative. You lie and pretend to be a maverick. That becomes your calling card if you come to Washington, D.C., like Thom Tillis did, to do absolutely nothing for his constituents. You play a part. You convince voters, donors, lobbyists, members of your own party, I'm the only sane one here. No, you're a fraud, Thom Tillis. On Thursday, this is good news. On Thursday, Tennessee Republicans rejected Congressman Andy Ogles, the most Islamophobic Republican in Washington, and that's saying a lot. That includes the disgusting, homunculus Florida's Randy Fine. This guy's even worse than Randy Fine, Andy Ogles. Charlie Hatcher, an agriculture commissioner from Tennessee, won more than 53% of the vote with the support of Republican Governor Bill Lee. He defeated Ogles. Ogles was endorsed by Trump. Why was he endorsed by Donald Trump? This year, Ogles said, quote, Muslims don't belong in American society, unquote. He also said this year, Muslims are unable to assimilate. They all have to go back, unquote. He called for my mayor to be stripped of his citizenship and sent back to Uganda, where Mayor Mamdani was born. Andy Ogles, Tennessee, Republican, primaried out of office. Do we have anything? Okay. He's not even worth that. Ogles, in the past 3 years, has been caught lying about working in law enforcement, claims to have helped in human trafficking. Well, maybe he's helped in human trafficking, just not on the law enforcement side. Before coming to Congress, I don't know, but he never worked as a law enforcement officer, I don't think. There's been reporting on that. Before coming to Congress, where he emerged as a fiscal hawk, got to balance the budget, cut taxes for the rich. He's still a vocal member of the Freedom Caucus, let's shut down the government, before he came to Congress. Andy Ogles served as executive director of the Laffer Center for Supply-Side Economics, named after Arthur Laffer, the godfather of Reaganomics, who convinced several generations of lowbrow Republicans that despite all evidence to the contrary, lowering taxes on the rich won't just stimulate the economy, but balance the federal budget as well. And Andy Ogles was executive director of Arthur Laffer's think tank. Andy Ogles claimed to be an economist, despite taking one course in the subject at a community college and receiving a C. By the way, that's not a slam on community colleges, that's a slam on Andy Ogles. Community colleges are the lifeblood of education, opportunity, and democracy, and support community colleges above all other higher education, community colleges. But Andy Ogles took one course in economics at a community college, got a C, and became executive director of the Laffer Center for Supply-Side Economics. Arthur Laffer still makes a fortune telling Americans the lie rich people want us to believe. Now, there are so many lies Republicans tell about government spending, and among the top two are lowering taxes for the rich and only the rich creates so many jobs, stimulates the economy at such a massive scale that what the federal government loses in tax revenue from rich people not paying their taxes more than makes up for in working Americans paying taxes on income from all the jobs rich people created with the money they didn't have to turn over to the IRS. They're the job creators. So that's the first lie. That's the first lie. The government is the job creator. Even in private industry, the Federal Reserve is the job creator. Interest rates go up, that affects employment. Fiscal spending affects the unemployment rate. There's no such thing as entrepreneurs who are job creators. If anything, they're job destroyers. So anyway, that's the first lie. The Laffer curve, supply-side economics, Reaganomics, George Bush, Trump, Paul Ryan. They get paid, Paul Ryan gets paid a lot of money to spread the lie that government spending is out of control and the way to balance the budget is to cut taxes for the richest people on earth. The other lie that Republicans repeat over and over is socialism has failed everywhere it's been tried. Peggy Noonan just wrote that in the Wall Street Journal. Once it gets repeated so often, you can just state it like it's axiomatic. Socialism has failed everywhere it's been tried. To which I say, so has capitalism. Capitalism failed in 1929. It failed in 2008 and in 2020, and it's going to fail again. You know what bails out capitalism every time it fails, and it always fails? Socialism. The government injects trillions into the economy to save capitalism. But capitalism and socialism are vague abstractions that mean absolutely nothing in the day-to-day operations of our economy. So you just spew false platitudes when you're against helping the poor by saying it's socialism and socialism has failed every time it's been tried. That's a lie, because capitalism has failed every time it's been tried. And the real truth is they've never tried socialism or capitalism. It's a utopian wet dream. Capitalism and socialism are not economic policy. They are meaningless terms. They are religious beliefs, tidy labels that people hide behind to either define themselves or their opponents. It means nothing. It's not economic policy. Socialism isn't economic policy. Capitalism isn't economic policy. Economic policy is where the rubber meets the road. Do you want to raise or lower interest rates? Do you want to pass a stimulus bill or not? Doesn't matter if you're a socialist, whatever you want to call, or a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim. Your religion has as much to do with your economic beliefs as do you want to pass one big beautiful bill or not? Are you for work requirements in order to qualify for Medicaid? So anyone who claims socialism has failed every time it's been tried, you say two things to them. First, you say, so has capitalism. And then you say, really, socialism has failed everywhere it's been tried? What about China? What about China? China is a socialist nation and economy. Whenever people like Andy Ogles and Arthur Laffer say capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than any other economic system, they include China. All of a sudden, China's a capitalist country. China is a socialist nation. It's state capitalism in a socialist market economy, meaning there's room for some private ownership, but that private ownership is controlled by the party, by the state. Besides, it's a stupid conversation. It's a stupid conversation to have when millions of Americans are losing health care, food stamps. I don't want to have a discussion about economic theory that neither one of us understand. I care about the single mom living in a car. There's no such thing as socialism or capitalism. There's no such thing as a free market. Government spending is like 40% of the American economy. So let's just talk about how we're going to spend that money. All these ideas, economic theories, are just that, theories that have never been tested because they've all been contaminated by the practical implementation of economic policy. And economic policy, at least in America and Europe, they are always a combination of state and private ownership. It's a balancing act, which is why capitalism and socialism have failed every time something remotely resembling the two were tried. Let's talk policy. And some policies succeed, some fail. Reaganomics, supply-side economics, the Laffer curve, all three were economic theories to justify cutting taxes for the rich. That's the cover for an economic policy that made the rich richer and the poor poorer. It was the largest transfer of wealth upwards in the history of civilization. It started under Reagan, and it has failed every time. Reaganomics, the Laffer curve, supply-side economics has failed every time it's been tried, unless you're one of the people paying Arthur Laffer and Andy Ogles to spread these lies. If you're rich, it works for you. It's like, if you're a tobacco company, you pay scientists to say, oh, they're not carcinogenic. Bidenomics, that is economic policy, may be hiding behind Keynesian economic theory, but Bidenomics, that is what? The Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, the stimulus package, the CHIPS Act. Unlike Reaganomics, which was just cutting taxes for the rich, Bidenomics lifted more people out of poverty than any time since Lyndon Johnson's Great Society program. At one point, Joe Biden lifted more children out of poverty than any president in American history. Then they got rid of the child tax credit expansion, and thanks to the Republicans. Not only did Bidenomics lift Americans out of poverty, it made the wealthy even wealthier. We saw record stock markets, and housing remained unaffordable, which is good news if you own your own home. So this is what we're left with. Meaningless conversations about nothing, because people either won't tell you what they want or don't know what they want. Politics in the United States Americans, voters lack the vocabulary to debate actual economic and or domestic policy. And we are forced to reduce complex policy down to stereotypes. Stereotypes that prey on the fears and ignorance of both voters and politicians. So it's socialism's bad, capitalism good, when in fact all the policies that get implemented are a combination of socialism and capitalism, and some of those policies work, like Bidenomics, and others fail, like Reaganomics. The Republicans do not want to go into the weeds and debate policy because they lose. And establishment Democrats are no better. They can't debate policy. So they turn the debate into something different. And I'm talking about you, Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey, my sister's Democratic congressman who won't hold town halls anymore because he can't answer for himself. We saw this in Michigan with Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, who was running on two very specific things, Medicare for all and cutting funding for Israel's war machine. So the news media doesn't want to cover the complexities of Gaza or Medicare for all. So when Dr. El-Sayed appeared on the Sunday talk shows on this Sunday, the first thing he's asked is, will you disavow Hassan Piker, a socialist, for claiming America deserved 9/11? So that's the question Dr. El-Sayed was asked on Meet the Press on Sunday, because it's too difficult for Kristen Welker to discuss Medicare for all, attack her sponsors, the health insurance industry, and the arms manufacturers who are benefiting off arms sales to Israel. Can't discuss how to solve Gaza because that requires thinking. Can't discuss how to solve the problem of healthcare in America. So Hassan Piker, who's not running for office, but he's a socialist. I think he's Muslim. I'm not quite sure, but he once claimed America deserved to be attacked on 9/11. And that's what the mainstream media, Meet the Press, insisted that Dr. El-Sayed explain yourself. Well, first of all, Hassan Piker disavowed saying that. But when you're Kristen Welker from Meet the Press and you can't discuss real-world solutions to legitimate problems like healthcare in America or Gaza, you make it about Hassan Piker, socialist. Do you agree with him when he said America deserved to be attacked on 9/11? What does Hassan Piker and 9/11 have to do with health care or the situation in Gaza? Plays right into the hands of the Republicans. El-Sayed's opponent, Republican Mike Rogers, is already accusing Dr. El-Sayed of believing that America deserved to be attacked on 9/11. And you think, he never said that. One of his supporters mistakenly said that. A youthful indiscretion. Who cares what a video, a YouTube streamer thinks? What does it have to do with any of the pressing issues? Well, Republicans can't discuss the pressing issues. They can't discuss Gaza. They can't discuss Medicare for all because they can't let you know what they really think. And Kristen Welker, Meet the Press, and the mainstream media, they can't discuss Medicare for all because they're sponsored by the drug companies and the health insurance companies. And they can't discuss Gaza because they're sponsored by the military-industrial complex. So you're not allowed to discuss a peaceful solution to Gaza or figure out how to stop the health insurance companies from murdering millions of Americans. And the establishment Democrats are just like the media. They can't discuss Medicare for all because what they really believe is indefensible. See, establishment Democrats, James Carville, Axelrod, Mark Penn, Josh Gottheimer, Nancy Pelosi, establishment Democrats oppose Medicare for all, but you can't even introduce this as a piece of legislation because it exposes how fraudulent the Democratic establishment is on the issue of our day. If you oppose Medicare for all, which most Democratic politicians do, then you have to say Medicare is a failure. If you have to debate Medicare for all and you're against it, then you have to say Medicare is a failure, that the government can't do Medicare properly. But the Democratic establishment can never say that because Medicare is one of the most popular programs in the country, as well as the cornerstone of the Democratic Party. Lyndon Johnson created it. And the Democratic Party's narrative is Republicans have always been against Medicare, and they're trying to destroy it. The Democratic establishment, the centrists, the problem solvers, run on saving Medicare from Republicans. That's all they're willing to give as an issue, as a solution, right? We're protecting your Medicare from Republicans. We're not improving Medicare. We're protecting Medicare. We're protecting something that got passed in 1965. Medicare works. So Democrats can't debate Medicare for all because if Medicare for all works and is wildly popular, then why, as a centrist Democrat, why would you oppose Medicare for everyone? Why? Now, we've been over the numbers countless times, and Dr. El Sayed literally wrote the book on Medicare for all, which is cheaper, more efficient than for-profit health insurance and actually saves lives because it's health care, not health insurance, which the Democrats and the Republicans have played a trick on low-information American voters by convincing them health insurance means health care, two completely separate things. In fact, health insurance usually means no health care. Obamacare, unfortunately, is indefensible. It's indefensible compared to Medicare for all. Why? The federal government subsidizes, for the most part, health insurance companies, not taxpayers' health care. Obamacare is more about health insurance than it is about health care. And Democrats can't have this debate about Medicare for all because to oppose Medicare for all requires Democrats to say they think for-profit health insurance is what? A success? A win-win? That what? Health insurance is cheaper, more efficient, and healthier for Americans than Medicare? Are you going to make that argument, Josh Gottheimer? No, so you won't have it. You can't say that because it's a lie. And everyone knows it's a lie. And the minute you try to say that, you're going to be exposed as a lie, and more Americans are going to go, hey, I want Medicare for all. I'm not happy with my health insurance. I can't afford it. I want Medicare for all. My grandparents love Medicare. Why can't we have Medicare? So what do you do if you're Nancy Pelosi or Hakeem Jeffries when he becomes speaker, hopefully? You never introduce Medicare for all as a bill to be debated. And then what do? Well, you make the debate about something else. They're doing it right now in the Democratic Party. They make it about the loony left, the Democratic socialists taking over the Democratic Party. And David Remnick from The New Yorker goes and interviews some silly co-chair of the Democratic Socialists of America who isn't a policy wonk. And look how stupid people are who want Medicare for all. Look how stupid she is. That's what the Democrats are doing, at least the establishment Democrats. They look for every stupid, silly thing a Democratic socialist candidate or party leader ever say, and they use that as the argument that then supersedes the argument about Medicare for all. It stops being about Medicare for all, which is, we can't debate that, so you pick something that supersedes Medicare for all. The party's being destroyed by the loony left, Democratic socialists. They're going to make it impossible to defeat Republicans in November. That's how the Josh Gottheimers avoid discussing Medicare for all. You just attack the people calling for Medicare for all. And what the Democratic establishment does, and they're really good at it, they scare low information voters by accusing the left of wanting to take away your health insurance. That's a Republican talking point, but it's originally a talking point that goes back to 2020 when Bernie was running on Medicare for all. The establishment Democrats were all saying, he wants to take away your health insurance, and Americans are easily scared because low information voters are fearful. It's very easy to give them a scapegoat or someone to fear, or Bernie's going to take away your health insurance. Take away my effing health insurance, please. If I were running for office, I would say to the American people, I am taking away your health insurance. That's how these leftist Democrats have to hit the campaign trail and say, I'm taking away your health insurance and I'm going to give you health care, because health insurance is not health care. And the only reason some of you like your health insurance policy is because you've never gotten sick. Anybody who's ever gotten sick in America or had a parent or a loved one get sick in America doesn't love their health insurance plan. when there's a lot of money to be made, like if you're the oil companies or the tobacco companies or the health insurance companies or the pharmaceutical companies, you hire people to figure out how to debase the conversation. So it's never about how evil you are. If you work in the oil industry, the tobacco industry, if you work for the health insurance industry, you're evil. Evil, indefensible. ICE, if you work for ICE, you're evil. Jobs make you evil. It's not what you say, it's what you do. Well, I know we all love Obamacare because we all love Barack Obama. How can you not? But it was and remains a love letter to the health insurance industry. Gretchen Whitmer, the Democratic governor of Michigan, heir to a health insurance fortune, governor of Michigan, would not endorse Dr. El Sayed. Now she has. Obamacare subsidizes the health insurance companies. That's all you need to know. And that's indefensible, that your tax dollars, like the enhanced Obamacare subsidies, go directly to the health insurance companies. They don't even go to you to pay the health insurance companies. They go right to the health insurance companies. I got to stop because I'm getting angry. But I'm going to do an explainer on how healthcare works in this country. I did an explainer on AIPAC. I think it was the last show I did. It wasn't live. I recorded an explainer where I went over line by line why Mamdani is correct when he says AIPAC is run by monsters who use dark money to destroy democratic politics and the Democratic Party. I recommend you watch my explainer on AIPAC. I traffic in facts, and I welcome anybody to correct me. I'm going to do an explainer on healthcare and health insurance in America because I call it the complexity industrial complex. The complexity industrial complex makes something so impossible to figure out, people just trust the experts. Nobody understands healthcare or health insurance in this country, and I've been researching it, and I'll do an explainer on how it all doesn't work. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room for keeping the conversation civil. If I made any mistakes, please leave a comment wherever you're watching this. I read all your comments. Contact me over at davidfeldmanshow.com. If you would like to read the notes. Oh, hang on for 1 second. I like this. Let me go large here. Watch this. Come on. Oh, that's bad taste. I apologize. I'm having too much fun with that crap. I should be reading more. What was I talking about? Go to my website, davidfeldmanshow.com. If you would like to read my notes, these are the notes I actually use for the show that I work off. This is what I'm looking at when I give you my nonsense. If you'd like those notes, go to davidfeldmanshow.com, hit the big dig. That's what I call it, the big dig. If you would, what is that poor donkey allowing that elephant to do? Is that elephant doing push-ups on that donkey? If you would like to read all the articles I read, hit show prep, the show prep menu over at davidfeldmanshow.com. What else? I don't know. Join my fan club. We're going to have a meeting of my fan club soon. Some of you have joined my fan club. All right. I think that covers everything. I have a show coming up Tuesday at 6:05 p.m. And then I'm going to do an explainer about health care in the country. Thank you for listening to me.